Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You are now on the inside of what I like to call the circle of trust.
We are all connected in the great circle of life.
You know something, Bert?
What?
I think you and I are going in circles.
It feels like we're going in circles.
The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Because it's a circle.
Yeah, we heard about the circle. Yes, we're familiar with shapes.
Hi, this is Greg.
This is Chuck.
And this is Dan, and we are Talking in Circles, brought to you by the Geekcast Radio Network, the podcast that's always ready to make your day. This week, we have a special episode planned. I say we have a special episode planned every week, but this is episode. We'll be talking about the people we would invite to a dinner that are either alive or dead. So, fantasy dinner, who would come to our party? Well, we'll be discussing that in just a bit. But before we get to all that, how's the week been going for you guys?
Pretty good. The only bad thing about it is I had a headache the one morning when I woke up and I was nauseous and it was ugh. But then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep. The couple hours pass by. I'm like, I'm just going to go to sleep. And by the time I wake up, it's going to be gone because that's what usually happens when you have a migraine. So I go to bed, snuggle up and everything, fall asleep, wake up the next morning, still there. And it's transferred over to the other side of my head so I've had a migraine going there for 2 days in a row, but it's finally dissipated, thankfully. So I think I'm raring and ready to get it going, talking to you guys about some geeky stuff. So ready to go, you guys.
Well, in your fantasy dinner, I promise you would not have a headache. So, or you can invite the guy who created Advil, and then he would be able to fix it for you.
Or I'd invite all four girls, and they'd be like, "Oh, we also have migraines too," and I'd be like, "Son of a bitch."
Chuck, you're headache free this week, or how you been doing?
I am indeed. It was a happy week. This is kind of some old news, I guess, at this point, but I did find out that a little bit of news on my favorite show, Arrow. You guys remember Brandon Routh that played in Superman Returns?
I do. He played Superman, if I'm not mistaken.
This is the usual paid advertisement deal, right, Chuck? We're getting part of this.
Well, see, I haven't mentioned Arrow in like maybe 10 episodes, so I think I
thought your contract just ran out or something.
Well, I just signed a new one, you know.
Okay, good.
I opted out of the first one and, decided to take my talents back to Arrow, so.
That's cool. Yeah, I did hear about Brandon Routh.
Yeah, Brandon Routh will be playing a different DC superhero on Arrow Season 3 this fall. He'll be playing Ray Palmer, who is the Atom in DC Comics.
Did you also hear that the cousin of the person who played Arrow, I forget his name, but he was in that show Tomorrow People. He will be on The Flash playing Firestorm or whatever.
Yes,
okay,
Robbie Amell.
I need a Game of Thrones pamphlet with the family tree set up here for that explanation, Dan.
Okay, well, there's a guy on Arrow, his cousin, who also is named Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons and Breaker of Chains. Wait, no, I'm getting these confused.
Also hot?
Jon Snow. No, wait, hold on. Okay, Jon Snow was in Arrow. No, not right. Okay. Peter Dinklage. No, sorry. Anyways, no, the cousin of the guy who plays Arrow was in this show Tomorrow People, and that got canceled because it's not linked to DC or something at all, so I don't know. But that got canceled. Now he's going to be on The Flash playing Firestorm, which I don't know anything about that character except that he's a pretty awesome name. So.
That character is awesome. I'm really hoping they get into the powers of him because I'm thinking like, I know Arrow doesn't get into superpowers too much, so I'm thinking that Brandon Routh's not really going to be the Atom. He'll probably just be more like the scientist Ray Palmer. But on The Flash, the guy playing Firestorm, if they get into that, that is a really cool power, because he has the power to transmute the properties of any substance into something else of equal mass.
Isn't that the one with the gym teacher stuck in his head?
Yes, there was two people that, there's been a couple different versions, but there was two people that were involved in this accident, and Ronnie Raymond, who is going to be the character on the Flash show, played by Robbie Amell, he's like the main guy that's in control of the body, but the other guy was kind of the voice in his head and everything. And I guess like the hallmark of that character over the years was the banter between the two people, like kind of similar if you read the Nova comics with like his conversations with the Xandarian world mind and stuff like that. It's kind of similar to that. But he has a really cool power, like to transmute properties. Like it's, you know, say he had like a block of plastic, he could turn it into, you know, a block of gold or something. And I've seen it used really cool in comics, because like he could just turn the floor into like liquid, and you know, people fall through it, and you know, he could turn something into something really hard when someone hits it to block them. I mean, it's got endless possibilities, and it looks like the Flash, obviously with his powers, you know, that show's going the more of the special effects route with superpowers. So I'm really, really curious to see how that's going to work. That's pretty cool.
If I was going to choose a teacher to be stuck in my head, I think I'd either go, I think it's 7th or 8th. And there's a huge difference there if I mess that up. My one history teacher was freaking gorgeous. And every guy had like, was trying to attach mirrors to their shoes to look up her skirt.
Why'd you have a skirt as a gym teacher?
She was a history teacher, I believe. I think it was history.
Oh, they said gym teacher.
And I forget what grade she was in. She was teaching too, but she was pretty friggin' hot. I think it was 7th grade. All right, never mind. I could get into this later by myself.
I think that's code for something.
Digging out the yearbook. Greg's digging out the yearbook there.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyways, well, this week, like I mentioned, we'll be talking about people hoping the dinner, and I'm curious if that 7th grade teacher is one of them, Greg.
I didn't know she was an option. I thought we were going for famous people.
Well, she's famous to you, Greg. That's all that matters.
All right.
I did have one thing I want to talk about, too. A few way back when episodes ago, we talked about movies that you don't know or haven't seen or what have you. And this one's not necessarily one people haven't seen, so I won't go a great deal. But it's because it's done by William Friedkin, who's the director who did The Exorcist. He did a few other movies, most recently Killer Joe with Matthew McConaughey. But the movie I'm talking about is called The Sorcerer, or is actually just called Sorcerer. And no, it's not about magic powers or anything like that.
Is Mickey Mouse in it?
No, he is not. No.
With a mop and bucket?
No. Actually, really no big stars in this at all. The biggest star is the guy, it actually is, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was also the lead actor in Jaws. He played the sheriff. He's in this. And the basic idea behind this movie, it's actually a remake of Wages of Fear, which is like a German film. And the idea behind this, the premise is there are these truck drivers who have to transport this very dangerous chemical, like a chemical that if you move just a little bit, it will explode across this treacherous terrain in order to stop this fire. Basically, there's this huge, gigantic fire that has exploded, and there's like no way to really stop it except for using this chemical. But they can't transport it on the helicopter because there's too much vibration. They can't walk it because it's too long. So they have to use these trucks. They have to go really slow, and they have to kind of work their way through it. And this movie came out in the 70s, and I got it on Blu-ray. And if anyone's ever asked, like, well, why would I buy an old movie on Blu-ray? This is the reason. It is one of the most gorgeous-looking films that I think I've seen on Blu-ray. I was watching this with my wife, and she had no idea it was even a movie that was made in the 70s. It looked like pristine, amazing. And this movie is just crazy. The history of it is nuts. William Friedkin, the guy who directed it, even has mentioned in the past, he's like, he has no idea how he got away with half the stuff that he gets away with.
Dan, would you say he's freaking nuts?
He is freaking nuts, I would say.
Okay.
He's definitely freaking nuts.
I keep waiting for you to say something after you say his last name.
William Friedkin. But there's this scene, this one of the most infamous scenes in the movie where basically they have to take their truck and go across this bridge, this really rickety bridge that you would think would be dangerous just walking across, and underneath it is this roaring river. So it is like, and they did this, you're wondering like, oh, how did they fake this? They didn't. They kind of really did this. They went across the bridge with this truck, and I've heard the director saying, he's like, I probably put many two people in lives in danger during the filming of this. I mean, they had safety precautions and whatnot, but it was definitely crazy. And you wouldn't think you'd be able to create a lot of tension for a movie that's, you have trucks that don't go faster than 30, 40 miles per hour. But trust me, you can. It just, the first hour or so is really just setting up the character, setting up the situation. But once which I liked, but the final hour or so was just some great filmmaking, some great set pieces, like really thrilling, like a really great movie. So I just wanted to mention that because we're talking about movies you should see. So it's called Sorcerer. It came out on Blu-ray a few months ago. If you own a Blu-ray, rent it. Go to the library, maybe. You can even rent it there. Check it out because it's really awesome. I loved it. It was fantastic. So, all right, but that's, I think, all we've been up to this week, right? Any other news? Any other craziness?
Nah, pretty boring week, I guess. Unfortunately, been having a lot of them lately.
Tis life. I think that's called adulthood. I believe is that
It's called responsibility. I think.
Freaking responsibility.
It sucks.
We did not sign up for this.
I've been writing stuff, so I haven't been doing anything really. I've just been writing.
All right.
I do not have great power, so I don't know why I have great responsibility.
You got the short end of that stick. But
yeah, I did.
But like I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about people we invite into a dinner. A lot of people have had this conversation. It's kind of common, but I think we're going to put our own little spin on this. And it's not necessarily a top 5, but in the spirit of that. So we're all going to pick 5 people, alive or dead, that we would want to have come to our dinner party. So
I also put a restriction on myself, Dan. Sorry to interrupt, but I put a restriction on myself. I could have went through the whole thing and just seriously picked out 5 women to sit down with, like Emma Watson, Jennifer Lawrence, Selena Gomez, Haley Williams, and Emily Ratajkowski, Amelia Clark, and I could have just named off women, but I restricted myself, and I did not do that.
We're very proud of you, Greg.
Thank you. I figured they want more intellectual choices than girls to just try and make out with. So
that would be a really awkward dinner too, where they're just sitting on one side and you're just standing there, like.
And I'm like, just with my pants off, going, "What's up, ladies? You know what's going down."
Yeah. They're like, why in our fantasy are we at a dinner table? It's so weird. But no, I didn't really have any restrictions beyond that. I did try to kind of hit all different parameters of what I love. So a little bit of history, a little bit of movies. So just people I find endlessly interesting. And I do wonder if there will be crossover because I know we kind of idolize some of the same people. So, but I think we'll kind of go round robin with this, like we do with our top 5s, kind of going in a circle. Like we do here because we're talking in circles. See that?
Oh, it came back around again.
That's
also why it's a circle. Boom.
Everlasting. So I've been talking for a while. Chuck, do you want to start with the first person you would invite to your most infamous dinner? I guess, do we want to decide, like, where we're going to have it? Like, what type of restaurant we at? Like, we at, like, Wendy's? We at, like, Five Guys? We at, fine dining? We buffeting this mofo? What do we, if you want to throw that in there, feel free. So
I have no idea. I'm saying like maybe a food truck or something.
Nice. I love food trucks.
Just hanging out in the park, maybe on some benches or something.
Good choice. Good choice.
People are over there playing chess. You could see Magneto and Xavier playing chess over there.
Very
they're
cool.
They're not at my dinner party where we can see them.
You're staring at them longingly. So who at this food truck dinner party? Who is the first person that you're inviting?
The first person that I would invite is Jesus Christ. I would love to just spend time with him face to face and talk about everyday life. Like, honestly, how to deal with things that I struggle with, because I'm not freaking perfect at all. No, nobody is, but just talk about life and what I could do better and how to deal with stuff and deal with other people and just some of the hardest things in life. And Also, like, I'm a big history guy too, and I would love to know what things were like back then, during his time on Earth, and how things worked and how things are different today. And I think that would spark some interesting conversation. But that would definitely be my number one choice.
You think you'd ask him, can you turn this water into funk like they do in Family Guy?
we would have free wine for the dinner. So.
Yeah, he's always ordering the salmon. He's like really good at, Maybe if you're at the park, you can probably go fishing. We know he's good at that. So
he would probably get the fish tacos from the food truck. Maybe I don't know.
I could see that.
I'm not a fish fan though. I'd probably go with regular tacos. I don't know.
Yeah. I know fish and tacos. It does seem sacrilegious, but it also seems using sacrilegious after you said Jesus Christ as also sacrilegious. So it's like a double standard there. But I mean, you can't argue with that. So, all right. So, Greg, who are you inviting to your soiree, however you say it?
Soiree. Well, first off, mine is going to take place at, let's see, I didn't think about this one beforehand, but let's make it really awesome, and we'll have it at like a strip club with a buffet going on.
There you go.
That's very appropriate. But we'll have the music turned down a little bit and just have chicks dancing in the background, so we could still discuss things, though.
So a girl is just dancing with no music, so that won't look awkward.
Well, it's very quiet. It's just like dinner music. Dun, 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 dun.
So she's mood dancing.
Yeah, exactly.
You just keep it in classy. All right.
You just leave the elevator doors open, and that's just the residual music you hear.
Just imagine a place that like the Rat Pack would go to back in the day. That's where we're at. Very kind of fancy, but like upscale a little bit.
Okay, like a go-go club or whatever.
Yeah, kind of. We'll go there.
Like in X-Men First Class, like that type of club that Sebastian Shaw ran.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
All right.
It's very, very shagadelic. But the first person I would invite, my list, you're going to notice that it's kind of just creatives. I'm very fascinated with creative people and just things that they come up with. I think that's one of the reasons why I read so much, is just so many creative ideas coming at me. But I think one of the most creative people from my childhood that is just freaking hilarious, who you need there to brighten things up a little bit. I think I need Bill Murray there to kind of help out. I heard he's been going to a lot of parties lately and kind of crashing parties and whatnot. So I think that'd be really fun. And I'd like to do that before he kind of kicks the bucket and still moving pretty good and everything and still freaking awesome. So I'm going with Bill Murray as my first guest to this dinner party.
Very nice. I think I kind of predicted that you would have him.
Yeah. I thought about picking him too, but I'm like, you know what, Greg's probably going to go Bill Murray, so I went a different route.
Okay, I thought I wasn't being predictable with that one.
He's going to sit down at your dinner and eat with you and just take your food and say no one will ever believe you.
That's fine. That's all he has to do. He's amazing just like that.
Yeah. That's pretty good choice, though. I mean, yeah, can't go wrong with Bill Murray. The guy is a comedy legend for sure.
The shizzle.
All right, so my turn. I'm thinking I'm a big fan of pizza buffets and like hot wing buffets, so I'm thinking that's what it'll be like afternoon at like a Pizza Hut, because that's when they have like their buffets, which I think are pretty awesome. I don't know,
I grew up after one of those ones.
Pizza Hut is freaking awesome.
Yeah, like. I know there's that CC's buffet, but their pizza's kind of not that great. But like Pizza Hut buffets,
I would disagree with that.
Oh, really?
I would take exception to that comment. I happen to like CC's a lot, but I do agree. I think Pizza Hut's a notch better.
I wouldn't say I eat there. I definitely think it's worth the value, but I think if we're gonna go Pizza Hut buffet or CC's buffet, I'm gonna go with Pizza Hut.
Definitely, yeah.
But I do like all the random combinations CC comes up with. It's pretty interesting.
True.
So I'm thinking buffet, because some of the people I have on my list, I think they're eaters along with myself. So especially my first person, and I don't really talk about it much on the podcast a great deal, but I am a fan of history. My minor in college was social studies, and I love U.S. history, especially like presidential history. And this person would be on the Mount Rushmore of presidents. Literally, because he is. and and that is Theodore Roosevelt. I find him endlessly fascinating. His life is just freaking incredible, and I just want him at the party just to hear all of his crazy stories. I mean, this guy was part of the Rough Riders, and no, it had nothing to do with DMX and his rap group separately.
I was thinking of some kind of other rough riding.
Of course, Greg. I'm sure they rode bareback. But he's part of the Rough Riders. He was president. It's funny because you look at his politics, and in some ways he was like ultra conservative. In some ways he was like ultra liberal. He kind of like bucked all these trends. He left the presidency just because he wanted to go on safari, and came back and created the Bull Moose Party because Taft was an awful president, but he ended up losing. But I mean, like, he named the party Bull Moose. No one parties like a Bull Moose party. Like, let's be honest. Like, but I just find that his life is crazy. He, did a lot of national parks, which is why he's on Mount Rushmore. He was a huge badass. If you look at his history, the dude could throw down. He was vicious. He just had a huge, crazy life. His presidency, even though it wasn't as long as someone like FDR, it was just as eventful. So I find him endlessly fascinating, and there's so many crazy facts about him. So if we ever did the badass bracket again, we're clearly entering him into it. I meant to do it last time. I just never did, but he is truly an American badass. And so my number one is Theodore Roosevelt. All right, bringing it back around. Chuck, so we have you started you can't get much better than your first choice. So I'm curious who...
Second choice, God.
I'm curious to see who's
well,
also...
He is God, so there's no...
I'm curious to see who also is joining you on this food truck party.
Well, I think my second one is probably somebody that's on a lot of people's lists for one reason or another. I guess it's like a popular choice, but for my number two, I'd have to say Albert Einstein. He was just a great brain that I would just love to have some heavy theoretical discussions with, and I get into that stuff with physics and just kind of let your imagination go, because as you really get out there with physics, it's more like get into some imagination. And I think one of his quotes, which I love all his quotes, he has like some really, really great quotes, and I think one of his quotes was that the true measure of intelligence is not knowledge, but it's imagination. And I would just love to talk with him about stuff, and I think that he's somebody that was really down to earth, judging by a lot of things that he said, a lot of his quotes. Because a lot of people, like those really brainy types, they're just like way up here, and like you can't even talk to them just because they're on another plane. But this guy seemed like he was really down to earth for how smart he was, and figured out a lot about not only physics, but he figured out a lot about life. And some of his quotes really reflect like the life lessons that we could all follow. But Albert Einstein, I think, would be a great second member to my party.
And I think it'd be just kind of cool hearing a conversation between him and Jesus. That would be kind of crazy. Just
Indeed.
Being a part of that and be like, all right. Though it'd be kind of hard to try to be in that conversation. Be like, well, I think. Like, oh wait, I can't give my opinion. And it's
like, be quiet. Finish your tacos.
I don't think you're right. It's like, no, all right, no, you're Albert Einstein. It's like, it's hard to argue with the guy that people point to as a metaphor for being intelligent. So yeah.
And I will say too, on a side funny note, that I was watching this video on YouTube during the week. Have you guys ever heard of the videos Epic Rap Battles of History?
I've heard of them. I've watched a couple.
My friend just texted me about that about 2 seconds ago. My friend Ashley, she's like, "Did you ever hear these?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Somehow
she's like, "They're so amazing."
Yeah, somehow I just came across them this week, even though they've been around since like 2011 or something. But they did the one rap battle was Albert Einstein versus Stephen Hawking, and it was freaking hilarious.
I'll have to check that out. So.
That's probably one of the funniest ones.
Nice. I'm guessing Hawking won. Come on, I mean.
I don't know. I think Einstein won.
All right. Yeah. Very cool. All right, Greg. So so far you have Bill Murray. Who is going to join you on this? I think Bill Murray is probably good enough, but I mean, I guess you can add more people.
Well, yeah, the restriction's 5 here at the table. Number 2, I think is going to be another obvious one, but I think he's essential if we're going creative and we're going in knowing what we like, all of us. I think he's essential at the creative table, and I've seen him once, and I said a couple words to him. But it was a thank you, and he's a very tiny, small man. We've talked about him before.
You're going to take one of my guests, too.
Okay, sorry.
No, okay.
Well, he's going to be... We just have to make sure we don't establish our dinners at the same time. We just have to have them on different days.
Right.
Okay, so we're good.
Don't make him choose.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to invite Stan Lee over to the table, and he's going to have, like, some whole wheat toast or something.
Nice.
The man's pretty old. He's really hanging in there.
Yeah. I mean, this is Living and Dead, and he's kind of in between. So
yeah, he might break a hip if he gets a lap dance or anything. So.
Oh God, that's an image I don't want in my head. Stanley getting a lap dance.
We have emergency teams on standby. But yeah, I just think it'd be awesome to talk to him. Every comic book nerd wants to have their own session with Stan Lee. Like, came up with some of the greatest characters of this century, maybe even more. He's our Shakespeare. He's our Charles Dickens. Like, he is the epitome of writing this day and age, if you ask me. So Stan the Man Lee.
All right. I can't argue with that. I thought about going Stan Lee too, but I figured he'd be on someone's list, so I figured I would do a little bit of variety here. So my list, though, again, is with things I really like. And if you know anything about me, you know I love movies and I love movie criticism. If you're going to kind of combine those, there's only one person you can really go to. And he is kind of probably the most influential movie critic of all time. And that is, of course, Roger Ebert, who has an extensive career as a movie critic. He even, somewhat of a career of being part of movies. There's actually a documentary that came out this year, which I have not had the opportunity to check out, called Life Itself, which gets into his life and, what he was about. And he's a guy who simply loved movies, but he was also an amazing writer. I think two people, why was Roger Ebert why did people go to him as a critic? Did he know the most about movies? Did he make a lot of movies? No, that wasn't it. I think what really makes Roger Ebert such an important figure is just that he's an amazing writer. He just know how to speak to both the most educated cinephile to just the general fan. He had a personality to his writing. He could break down films, and he was just, I think, above all else, he was honest with his writing. He gave his honest opinions. If you look at some of the movies that he gave really great reviews to, there are a lot of stuff that people don't like. There was a lot of stuff people kind of fanned or thought was awful, and he was like, you know what, I like this, and here's why. He treated genre films with a seriousness that no other critic would. He was able to look at what it was trying to accomplish and say, hey, I'm going to give this movie 4 stars. I'm going to give a thriller, a horror film 4 stars, because it does exactly what a horror thriller should. And a lot of critics weren't doing that at the time. I think that's what really broke him out. And I just want to talk to him about all of his movies, his love of movies, his writing ability as someone who does reviews myself, which are nothing even close to something that he's able to do. But I would just love to kind of find out how he broke down movies. And he's also a really interesting guy too. Hearing his life story and what he's gone through. I mean, he had to go through a lot of struggles. Those who know, his last decade or so of life, he had really bad cancer. He lost his ability to speak. So this guy who was so notorious for his giving his opinion couldn't give his opinion verbally. It had to be all through writing. But yeah, he's a guy who is really a huge impact on a lot of people. And I know a lot of my friends who are really into who went to film school and craziness like that, or go point to him for what he's done. And there's this thing called Eberfest, where he gets movies that weren't very popular and brings them out to the populace and tries to lift them up. And he did that a lot. And I don't think that's something critics do enough, is trying to, or at least they do now, but they didn't do in the back in the day, was be willing to kind of say, hey, I love this movie and I'm not ashamed of it. I don't care if everyone's kind of saying Joe versus the Volcano is a crappy movie. I think it's awesome, and here's why. So I think that's an important aspect of it, and that kind of like thing led to things like podcasting, giving reviews. So in a way, even though this isn't necessarily a movie podcast, it is highly related to what he did. So anyways.
I thought you were going to say John Lovitz,
well,
the critic.
He's second on the list. He's second.
Oh, okay.
He's second most important person. So, though that was one of my favorite cartoons. So there you go. Yeah. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. And Chuck, I think we know who's next on your list, but why would you bring Stan Lee? I think that reasons are obvious, but still, to your food truck buffet feast.
I honestly, like, I love comic books like Greg, like we all do. This guy's like the king. I would love to pick his brain, not only about the Marvel characters that he created, but also his views on like where the industry is today and how some things ended up and how some things came about because of influence from his creations. I'd like to get his views on all that. And he seems like a humble guy. Like he never really likes to pat himself on the back too awful much. And I think he has a great personality and a great sense of humor. And I totally think I would get along with him. Like he just seems really down to earth and doesn't want a lot of attention drawn to him and everything. And I've seen like interviews where people kind of like heap praises on him and he just like shrugs it off and he's like, I kind of fell ass backwards into that. Like he never takes a lot of credit for it. And I really appreciate something like that. And also, I mean, I'd like to ask him like some of his favorite characters and what's his favorite character not from Marvel. Does he even like DC or does he hate them? You know, does he have a DC Comics dartboard in his living room? Or, you know, but I think he would be a really, really fun guy to have at the dinner party.
And then Stan Lee and Jesus could go to temple afterwards because they're both Jewish.
Honestly, Chuck, one thing I would advise is checking out the Nerdist episode where they interviewed Stan Lee, because I think that like Chris Hardwick, since it was such a long interview, was able to kind of get past like the normal talk Stan Lee gives, his like normal persona, and get into some really interesting conversation about some real things. And like he too, beyond just the comics, he had a crazy life. And he was in World War II. He wrote with a part of it, like an industry where like included like Francis Ford Coppola, and he was like the guy who would later become Dr. Seuss. So like he has a crazy life, and like you mentioned,
yeah, definitely.
He's what, like 98 now or 90? He's in his 90s, and the dude is still going. I mean, that's incredible. He's insane. Like in all likelihood, he should probably be on my list because there's a lot of things like you mentioned I'd like to say to him or ask him or just like be around him, because if any, like he seems to be just such a person who loves what he does, which is so rare. So, but
yeah, it's like you know, everything he's done like related to comics wasn't even a job. It was just like this fun thing he does because it looks like it just brings him so much joy, and you don't really see that in a lot of people. A lot of people don't get that much enjoyment out of their jobs. I know most people don't.
Yeah. So very good choice to both of you. Greg, so far you have Bill Murray, you have Stan Lee. Who are you going with next?
Well, I think in such a location that I have established for us that we're all hanging out in, it's such a magical place. I think you need to bring in somebody else who has established a magical place in a different aspect. And I think you have to go with Walt Disney. He has established an empire. He has established a land that has come through time to transport you to different times and has stayed throughout the years, and everybody loves it. Disney has their freaking hands in everything at this point. That's not really him buying it up, but it's from the foundation that he has built to help rise their entertainment division above anybody else. Their theme parks are amazing. Little kids just want to go to this place, and he lived there. He made apartment buildings in the different amusement parks for him and his kids to stay at. If you saw Saving Mr. Banks, Tom Hanks's portrayal of him, just like, who wouldn't want to hang out with that fucking guy? Like,
yeah. I was going to ask you if you saw that movie. He was.
I did. I enjoyed that quite thoroughly. I even watched it with my parents, and we don't usually watch too many movies together at this point because our tastes have kind of diverged at this point. But they both really, really loved it, and my mom wants to watch it again because she was a big fan of Mary Poppins back in the day.
I must say, Greg, I would never have guessed that you would have got Walt Disney. Like, that is completely surprising to me.
Well, I'm cartoony, goofy. I loved cartoons from back in the day. I loved the voice work and everything, and he's kind of a big influence behind that to get cartoons going and whatnot.
So do you have a favorite Walt Disney movie?
At this point, no. Back in the day, I probably would have told you one, but they're just all so magical at this point that it's just kind of tough to choose one. But definitely one of the older ones from back when I was a kid. Plus I really liked Little Mermaid back in the day.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. That's a good movie. There's actually a really great documentary called like Waking Sleeping Beauty, which gets into like the renaissance of the Disney in the 90s. But regarding Walt Disney, yeah, I mean, like, it's crazy when you realize what he started off as and what he became. But I've never had the pleasure to go to Disneyland or Disney World. But
what?
I never have. Have you guys?
I've been to both.
I have never been there either.
Yeah.
Guys, killing me.
I know. I've never had the.
We have to change that.
I know.
I was never a real big Disney person growing up, though. I don't know.
Even like Aladdin and Lion King and whatnot.
Yeah, a little bit Aladdin, but I didn't really. I don't know. I really didn't care for those movies. Like, I wasn't obsessed with them. I mean, I liked them, but it wasn't something that I was enthralled in like a lot of other people.
Oh wow, yeah,
Arabian Nights,
I was like
Arabian days.
It is funny.
Hotter than hot.
I was like watching that movie again, like Aladdin was on TV. I realized I remember this movie word for word. Like, I remember every aspect. I don't know. I was a lot of because of my sisters and brother. Like, I got into a lot of the old Disney stuff, like especially like the Lion King and whatnot, and Little Mermaid. Anyways, but yeah, a lot of talk there with Disney. I mean, obviously those movies were made long after he was gone. But interesting fact about Walt Disney: he's won more Oscars than any other person. So,
whoop, whoop.
So there you go.
It'll also be really interesting to see him in a fancy strip joint.
Yeah, and smoking, because he did do that, which is interesting. He did
smoke, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because they kind of hinted that with Saving Mr. Banks, but then they had to kind of they couldn't show it. You weren't allowed to show it. So
no.
Before we take a break, I'm going to give my number 3 or whatever, my third person, and this is one person that's currently living, who's kind of like really popular right now, but I've been a big fan of him for a while.
Oh, I know this one.
Go ahead.
Is it Chris Hardwick?
No.
Oh.
I thought about Chris Hardwick, but I ended up going. I decided against it. I went with someone else again, someone who's really popular, largely due to the TV series known as Cosmos. But I'm also a big fan of his podcast called Star Talk, and he's almost like the modern day Albert Einstein, and that is Neil deGrasse Tyson. I became a fan of him when I saw him being interviewed on The Daily Show way back when. And, he's this physicist. I thought it'd be a boring interview. And I'm like, wow, this guy's actually really entertaining. He breaks down science in a way that makes it fun and really easy to understand. I started listening to his podcast, Star Talk, which is really fascinating because he also gets comics on it too. So it's really funny, a really great listen. Like I said, check that out for sure. And then you have Cosmos coming out, which is a great TV series, which I still have to catch up. I've only watched a few episodes of it. I pulled a Greg and forgot when it was on, and need to go back and check it out. But I just find him really fascinating to listen to. He knows a great deal. I think just hearing like his ideas on physics and whatnot, and hearing like even taking geeky things, because he's really good at that, taking things like Thor's hammer, or taking things like how strong Hulk would have to be in order to do all of his crazy stuff, and using that to talk about physics and all the science stuff. So I find that really cool. So I would love to have him at a dinner, just kind of pick his brain about all this crazy stuff. And with Roger Ebert and Theodore Roosevelt there, just that kind of hitting all the different areas here. So I got my science guy, I got my, political history guy, and I got my movie guy so far. So trying to go the spectrum. So, all right. So that's my third choice. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have our final two choices. And also, I have a special letter for a very infamous director that I hope he will listen to. We will see you in a bit.
Hello, geeks. Want a podcast that covers a vast array of topics with no rhyme or reason? Then check out Altered Geek Unlimited, where the topics fly more or less off the cuff. We cover media news, TV, our favorite geek products, and of course, your feedback. So get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks every Friday on the Geekcast Radio Network.
Every week on the In Session Film Podcast, you can expect to hear reviews on all of the latest movies, big films, small films, and everything in between. We'll also do top 3 segments relating back to our main review. We discuss all of the latest movie news and rumblings, as well as have movie series and other fun segments. And we always talk about the films that we're watching and why you should watch them or not watch them as well. If you want to learn more about the In Session Film Podcast, check us out online at InSessionFilm.com. You can hear our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, and so much more. In fact, you can listen to everything we have straight from our website. Again, that is InSessionFilm.com. Download our podcast, check us out, and come join us every week. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, and welcome back. And we'll be finishing off our infamous dinners with our final two choices. And Chuck, so far in your dinner, we have Jesus Christ himself, we have Stan Lee, we have Albert Einstein. Who is joining them for this food truck fiesta?
The food truck fiesta in the park.
I would go to that shindig, no doubt. I would be there. So
yeah, it's nice, relaxed atmosphere. Maybe there's like a fountain or something there. It's a beautiful sunny day.
Yeah.
Well, next to my party, Greg got to pick a guy that was a movie actor and a comedian, and I wanted to pick someone like that because I'm a big fan of comedy and a big fan of movies. So I would want someone that kind of was a part of both of those aspects. And this probably isn't someone you guys would expect that I would pick. If you had 5 guesses, you probably wouldn't get it on any of them. But someone that I really like to invite to my dinner party is John Candy.
Wow.
Back from the dead, zombie John Candy.
Nice.
Yeah, I've always loved John Candy. I love like all of his movies. I mean, you look at Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I mean, so many good ones there. Even like Spaceballs and stuff like that. And even his little cameo in Home Alone was quite amusing.
Yeah.
But I've always loved him. I think he would be so much fun. He's got just an awesome sense of humor, and he just seems like a fantastic personality to be around. I think he would really kind of spice up the party, so to speak. I'd probably be honestly rolling on the ground with laughter, but I could ask him about the movie biz. I could ask him about comedy. Who's some of your favorite comedians? Who are your favorite actors to work with and stuff like that? Like, I just think he would have a lot of insight being a part of both of those worlds, and just a big fan of his work and the way his personality was and stuff. I think he would be a lot of fun to hang out with, and I think him and Stan Lee would probably get along pretty well with their brands of humor. So.
Yeah, man, John Candy, he was such a legend. I fear people like kids today. I feel old saying kids today probably may not even know John Candy.
Get off my lawn!
Exactly. Uncle Buck. You ever watch like Saturday the morning cartoon show like Camp Candy or whatever? That
I did.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, That was back in the... I feel like back then, like, anyone had a Saturday morning cartoon show. Like, Mr. T had a Saturday morning cartoon show. So...
Freaking Louis Anderson had a cartoon show.
Oh, I like that cartoon.
Yeah, that was good. That was fun.
Yeah, good choice. I agree. Chuck, I would never have guessed John Candy. I would think maybe Bill Cosby, but no.
Yeah, I don't know. John Candy just seems like down to earth. Like, he seems like, he'd be like, okay, what are we doing? We're hanging out here. All right, let's have fun. Let's talk about something fun, something funny.
Yeah.
He just seems like that kind of guy. Like, he's not too, he's not too stuck up. He's not like a snob or anything like some other famous people. I just feel like he would be really down to earth and great to talk to.
Yeah.
See, I think he would just be happy that you're bringing him back to life just to have some food,
I wouldn't make him eat the 96er though.
Yeah, I think it's partially maybe because he's Canadian. He's got that better grasp on life. I don't know, but
could be.
All right, Greg, who is coming to your strip club / dinner with Stanley getting lap dances?
Well, so far we've had very magical people, very happy place people. This person kind of goes to the other side of creativity, and I'm going to go with Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense. Like I've said on other podcasts here, I'm a really big fan of all of his films. I think they're all really well done, except for The Birds and Birds, because those are just awful. But I think if I'm going to have all these other creatives who are so happy, it needs a counterbalance to all of that. And Hitchcock is definitely that counterbalance that'll get you into the little bit more Burton-esque, which probably Burton was inspired by the creepiness of Hitchcock films and everything. And I think a lot of ideas people sprouted out of Hitchcock, but definitely be interesting to see him in a strip joint. And like I said before, also in that last two podcasts ago where we talked about Hitchcock, I definitely want to check out those documentaries on him. But he definitely came up with some classic movies. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great choice. He's interesting dude too. I mean, his voice too, it just sounds like I can't do it, but it's like he just sounds
just
so
talking to him would be awesome. Just him just saying random words would be awesome.
Yeah. He's such a he's kind of a creepy dude, but in the best ways possible. So
yeah, he's imposing, but not like he's gonna beat you up imposing. It's just like, what the fuck's this guy gonna do to me?
Yeah. He's like a walking ghost in a way.
Yeah.
But great choice, Alfred Hitchcock. Some really, really great choices from everyone, really. My next choice, actually keeping kind of going with the movie train. We all have movie people this round. This guy is comedic when he needs to be. He has a really good sense of humor, but he's my all-time favorite actor. He's not because he can be so much. He can be dramatic. He can be comedic. He can be the hero. He can be the villain. He's had one of the greatest careers of all time. He has done so much beyond just movies. He's had his own. He's a race car driver. He had his own brand of coffee. He's done a lot in life, and that is Paul Newman, infamous actor. He was in Butch Cassidy's Sundance Kid, one of my top 5 favorite movies. He's been in so much. He was in Road to Perdition, a comic book movie. He was even in Cars with a Disney connection. He did a voice in Cars. He's been in so much. He was in Color Money, The Hustler. The guy has acted with the biggest and best stars, from Marlon Brando to Tom Hanks to everyone in between, to Tom Cruise even. He's worked with Martin Scorsese. He's worked with pretty much everyone you could imagine. I would pick his brain about working with those people, working with those actors, his life outside of movies, because I feel like he's a guy who he loved doing movies, but he also loved doing everything else. And one of my all-time favorite films is Cool Hand Luke. And I love his character in that, and just picking his brain about that too. I would like just to know how he approaches characters, because there's not many people who can be willing to kind of be such a nasty and evil, with some of the characters he has. in some of his Tennessee Williams plays that he was in. Like he was, he's playing alcoholics and wife beaters, and he goes all for it. He's willing to like do that role, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that. So I don't know. He's always impressed me as an actor. Like it's incredible when you looked at his career. Like I always see people listing like the best actors of all time, and sometimes he gets missed, and I think that's like ridiculous because his career there's second to none in my opinion. Like I would put him above Brando. I put him above De Niro because he has no lag in his career. Like he was nominated for an Oscar in nearly every decade from the time he started doing movies. And those who are big fans of Rocky, I know Chuck, you're a big Rocky fan. I advise checking out the movie Somebody Up There Likes Me. It's one of his first roles, and the character is so much like Rocky. So I've kind of gone back and watched a lot of his old movies, and he's kind of done everything. So nice. Slapshot 2, another great one. So if you've not seen a Paul Newman movie, there's tons to choose from.
Dan?
Which one was the one where he was like a billiards master and he was shooting pool?
There's two. There's The Hustler, and then the sequel that came out 30 years later, which was The Color of Money.
Okay.
What was that, Greg?
Did you just invite him just in case you ran out of salad dressing at the dinner?
I did. You saw through my facade.
Okay.
It does make a mean salad dressing.
Like I said, he can do it all. And then he could drive us there because he used to be a race car driver. So perfect.
All those proceeds of his products go to charities too, I believe.
Yeah. So, anyways, all right. So our last person, Chuck, you've kind of hit all the spectrums. You have a comedian with John Candy. You have, Jesus Christ himself. You have Stan Lee. You have, who am I forgetting?
Albert
Einstein. So I'd be intimidated to walk into that dinner party. So who else is going to be there?
Well, this last one is, I guess, kind of predictable. I don't know. It's more sports. This is my other spectrum, something that I like. And obviously my favorite sport is the NFL. I love football. Favorite team is the Miami Dolphins. So, of course, my final guest to my dinner party would be my favorite football player from my favorite team of all time.
Jay
and
Fiedler?
that would be
Reggie Bush.
No, not quite. That would, of course, be Dan Marino, former quarterback great of the Miami Dolphins and Hall of Famer as well.
That one I guessed. The other, and that one I assumed so.
Yeah, that was my one of my obvious choices.
Star of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Yes, laces out. It was a toss-up between him or Michael Jordan because I was also a huge Bulls fan growing up and watching Michael Jordan and everything too. And I didn't really want to put them both because I just kind of wanted to represent that genre or that aspect with one person. But grew up with my dad watching football. My dad was a Dolphins fan from way back, like in the early 70s. And so I kind of grew up liking them as well. And I guess I just like to know what the NFL was like from the perspective of my favorite player. What was his college career like? What was the whole draft process like? What was it like being that good that early in your career? Who are the good guys in the NFL? Who are the jerks? Stuff like that. Just the ins and out of it. Because as a fan, you want to know more about stuff like that, and you don't really have the access to it. You don't get to see some of that inside stuff like that. So I'd really like to pick his brain about that sort of thing and just get his views on the NFL and how far football has come and his career and how he influenced all of that and all the new players like, Peyton Manning, who's one of the greatest of all time now, grew up idolizing Dan Marino, and two very, very similar quarterbacks. So he had a big influence, and obviously the sport I love, so it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, very good choice. I remember when we went to Canton, Ohio to watch him get inducted to the Hall of Fame, and that was mighty awesome. So
yeah.
He is a legend. He He changed the game for sure, and it's kind of crazy. You look at that year when he was drafted in the NFL. What was he, like the 6th quarterback taken in that draft in the first round or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. He was picked 27th, so it was. I think at the time it would have been second to last pick in the first round.
Yeah.
So almost all of the other teams passed on him before that, and they all kicked themselves in the ass after that.
Yeah, and when you see any rookie have like a good year or second year player, they always it's always compared to like his second year, because he was one of the first quarterbacks ever to have a be strong out of the gate. So
I think his second season he threw 44 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Like, who friggin' does that? It's just unbelievable.
And I know some of his stats have been broken since then, but it's definitely a different era. I mean, if he played now, I'm sure it would be astronomical. Like, it would be untouchable. So
he was the original Peyton Manning to me. I mean, he was so smart at the line of scrimmage and trying to fool the defense and everything that he did. He was a great manager of the game. He always kept his guys in line. You remember that famous play against the Jets where they just thought he was going to spike the ball as the clock was running out. So he snaps the ball and they just kind of stood there, and he threw a touchdown while they weren't paying attention.
Sounds like the Jets.
Yeah, it does sound a lot like them. Rex Ryan wasn't coaching back then. But
and then at that same moment, a young Mark Sanchez, distracted by that play, runs into the butt of one of his friends, fumbling a ball. So
you're talking about a guy that started all that stuff that we kind of make comparisons with quarterbacks today. Like, can he do this? Can he do that? Can he read the defense well? Does he take advantage of every single, thing that he can take advantage of from the defense? And, he was a big part of bringing that to the forefront.
Very nice. Very nice. So all those geeks that are still listening, I apologize for the sports talk, but hey, we do it every so often. You gotta. All right, Greg.
Lousy sports.
All right, Greg, it is now your moment of truth. You have Walt Disney. You too have Stan Lee. You also have Bill Murray, and you also have... Why am I always forgetting one? I'm always forgetting one.
Hitchcock.
And Alfred Hitchcock, your latest edition. So who, in your pool of creativity, who's coming in next?
Well, I think it's going to be an answer that nobody's really going to see coming. But I'm a huge fan of his work. The man that I'm not sure if many people are going to know who this is, but I'm a real big fan of.
Can I guess?
Yeah, sure.
Is it Charles Schultz?
No, it is not Charles Schultz. It is Frank Lloyd Wright. He is amazing architect. He did a building that's actually in Pennsylvania. It's a little bit out more towards Pittsburgh, but I actually went to visit the house and everything. It's it's Falling Waters. It's also called the Kaufman House because the owners were the owners of the Kaufman store, but they had a little summer house out that way. It was like a little cabin. And they had Frank Lloyd Wright design the building for them, and it came out amazing. It was going to this place. It was like the little kid me growing up and going to like Disney, like the little me going to Disney. Well, the adult me, this was my kind of going to Disney. It was so beautiful there. I just wanted to stay forever. It was incredible. Even though I've been there once, I really would like to go there again. It was just so peaceful. Everything looked nice. There was even a fun story of the family used to go out and kind of go swim in the water, and then they'd all get up onto this big rock and kind of tan themselves and dry themselves on this rock. And Frank Lloyd Wright kind of incorporated it into his design of the building, and it's just beautiful. If you guys see me, I have a like on the Talking in Circles page. I believe, I'm not sure if it's still my profile picture or not, but there's a picture of me in front of it actually. And I've got a couple Legos here of his some of his work. I've got Falling Waters, of course, and I've got the Guggenheim, which not a lot of people enjoy. They say it looks like a giant toilet, but pretty damn good if you ask me. And his whole deal was incorporating into the natural layout of the earth where they're putting the building, and he'll take resources from that area and he'll acquire it and put it in, try and keep the cost down low by using local materials, and also kind of made it fall in with the local scenery and everything. But he just does beautiful work. He actually brought together a school and taught kids kind of his craft and everything. I just fell in love with his work that he has done. It's just incredible stuff. If you have something nearby that you could go look at that he did, I'd highly recommend checking it out. I swear to God, it was like adult me Disney World. It was incredible.
Interesting. Yeah, I never would have guessed that. So I feel like you just classed up the podcast a little bit with your architect talk. So.
Yeah, I started off with all this entertainment stuff, and then I went really cultured.
I see. You jigged when we thought you would jag. So there you go. All right. Well, I'm going to go the opposite end with my last choice. I don't know if you guys would guess this or not, but maybe. I talked about when we did our top 5 favorite cartoons, my favorite cartoon was South Park. And I thought I would almost cheat a little bit here with doing kind of like a tag team, but I figured you don't really need to do that. I don't really have someone funny yet, really. I needed someone comedic, like you guys have mentioned. You guys have people that would bring some comedy, like Bill Murray or John Candy. And this guy would bring some comedy as well, and that is Trey Parker of South Park fame. Wow. I just, like I mentioned, I'm a huge South Park fan. I love that cartoon. But beyond that, I love Trey Parker's take on movies in general, like even like his idea of censorship and the MPAA. One of my favorite documentaries called This Film Is Not Yet Rated. He comes up with a lot of great theories on the MPAA and the ridiculousness. And I would talk to him endlessly about that. And just the way we treat blockbusters compared to independent films and how it's unfairly rated. I'm kind of a little bit into musicals, not a lot of them, but I find his musicals really funny and his songs really funny from Team America. Team America is such a freaking funny movie. And I have not seen Book of Mormon yet, but I've heard so much great things about it. And I also would talk about his ideas when it comes to comedy and the ideas of what you can make fun of and what you can't make fun of. Because a lot of people, I think, dismiss South Park because it's like crude and rude. But there's a lot of intelligence there, and it really gets into a lot of smart things underneath all that as well. So, and I know he's technically a partner with Matt Stone, but if you've ever watched the documentary 3 Days to Air, it's pretty evident most of it's Trey Parker, and Matt Stone just kind of throws in things here and there. So I'd also like Trey Stone. I would also have Trey Parker apologize for Basketball because that movie was awful. So why he's there, but which they even did in South Park, so that was kind of funny, but. I had a lot of ideas. I also thought about Bill Murray, like you, Greg. I thought about someone like Don Rickles, who's one of my favorite all-time like classic comedians, or Conan O'Brien, or even like Jon Stewart. But I really love satire, and I think South Park is a great satirical take on a lot of things. So I go with Trey Parker. So
one of my favorites of his is the episode where the motorcycle gang comes into town.
Oh, yes.
And they all start calling the motorcycle people fags. And, like, it was so real to life for me because, like, motorcycles in the summer going by my house are so fucking loud. You hear them for blocks. And I was thinking, I'm like, you know what? They are fags. That is totally true.
Yeah, it is just interesting too, because like I definitely people are like, oh, that's offensive, but not if you see it in the context of the episode, because the whole idea is taking that word and trying to be like, let's use this word, but not use it in association with something like homosexuals, but something that we all can agree we hate, which is
use it for good.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that is a good episode too, definitely. So. Yeah, I mean, my having Trey Parker next to Theodore Roosevelt, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's a photo I want to be in. I'm just saying. All right, so those are our dinner parties. Let us know the people that you would have at your dinner. Who would be there? Which dinner would you join? Would you join Chuck's fiesta of food trucks, Greg's sex club escapades, or mine pizza?
It's not a sex club, Dan. It's not like Stan Lee's gonna go get a blowjob and back or anything.
All right, sorry. Greg's Gentleman's Club. Is that better?
There you go. That's good.
All right, Gentleman's Club.
Whiskey or something.
Yeah, and mine. Were anybody on your list, you guys, that you thought about but didn't quite make it? Chuck, you mentioned Michael Jordan, and anybody else?
Yeah, I had. I can't remember who it was now. That's how great they were.
Bill Cosby, Tim Allen.
I did think about Tim Allen. Since I was such a fan of the show Home Improvement growing up, that was like a big part of my childhood. Love that show. So yeah, I did think about him and Michael Jordan. I mentioned, even somebody like Christopher Reeves.
Nice.
That would be, a great choice as well. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us either. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of other ones that I'm forgetting too, that I'm ashamed of.
It's kind of a wide open question, so you could really say anyone. How about you, Greg? Anyone else that you almost chose but didn't?
I was thinking Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the man who invented Sherlock Holmes, the classical, everybody's using Sherlock Holmes. Also thought of George Lucas, and of course I thought a whole bunch of women to show up for that. But
yeah, we can imagine.
Yeah, I figured that's where it wasn't exactly what you were looking for, is to me try and get a famous harem going on.
We could do another list, Greg, where it's like you could do something like that. I don't know. There's always possibilities.
Well, it's not that hard. I think I listed before: Emma Watson, Jennifer Lawrence, Selena Gomez. I had like 6 going. Emilia Clarke, Haley Williams.
4 hours later,
Emily Ratajkowski.
Speaking of Emma Watson and Jennifer Lawrence, there's this funny picture of
I've seen it
on Reddit when someone's like, "This guy did something right in life," and it's him sitting between Emma Watson and Jennifer Lawrence. It's some like old dude like in his 60s, and he's just like, he kind of looks miserable. But
somebody said it was the guy who invented the internet or something, or he owns the internet or something.
Really?
But yeah, he was a lucky son of a bitch.
All right, and you know what? We like to end each episode with a letter, and the fact that you're talking about all these women, it kind of fits into this because the person I'm writing to, he's a big fan of glorifying women sexually in his movies. And I know it's probably old news by now, but back not too long ago, Michael Bay came out with the latest edition of the Transformer franchise with Transformers. And a lot of people hated it, myself included. And I kind of liked some of the other Transformers movies. And also coming up, we know that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is coming out, and people are already getting ready for their childhoods to be demolished yet again. I know he didn't direct that, he only produced it. That's still wait and see. So I'm going to write a letter to Michael Bay, and the thing is, I'm not like a hater of Michael Bay. I actually like a lot of his movies, and the purpose of this letter is almost like a pep talk or kind of like an intervention for Michael Bay. So that's at least my theory. Dear Michael Bay, first, I would like to say I do not hate you. When I hear your name, I do not explode in fits of rage or in profanity and think anything with your name attached is forever plagued for my consumption. In fact, I enjoy a lot of your movies a great deal, including Bad Boys, The Rock, and even your most recent, Pain and Gain. I say that because my recent review of Transformers was, well, less than favorable. I'm not a person who hates the franchise. However, I'm a person who finds your latest effort, well, rather pathetic. It's clear you have the Eric Cartman, I'll do what I want personality, and make choices despite your critics. You see what people hate, and you try to almost go towards that just to spite them. And yes, like you have indicated, who cares what the haters say? The movies make tons of money, but you can't always depend on the box office to have staying power. Look at movies like Avatar or Titanic. 2 huge movies that made more money than anything that came out before, but do you hear anybody be talking about them now? Are the fans at conventions dedicated to their awesomeness? Has their influence changed the rules of cinema? No, not really. However, let's look at movies like Citizen Kane, It's a Wonderful Life, Blade Runner, Wizard of Oz, and even Alien to a certain extent. Those are relative failures at the box office, and yet have continued in the zeitgeist for generations. Mr. Bay, to me, you're the Randy Moss of directors. Someone who clearly has a talent unlike anyone else, but you will never hit your true potential due to your own selfish desires. Now it's not too late, and part of me thinks you realize this. Why else make a movie like Pain and Gain? I think subconsciously it was a note to yourself that you want to escape the prison of franchise fodder. So this is my advice. Stay away from sacred grounds of 80s cartoons. I personally am not one to complain about someone ruining my childhood, but I do realize you're better off with your own original ideas. So instead of Transformers 5, why not Bad Boys 3? Instead of producing TMNT, why not produce a new action franchise? Even those who hate you have to admit your name has power. You can pick up a franchise like The Raid, throw your name on it, and get millions of people to watch an interesting and inventive action film. And as Uncle Ben has taught us all, with great power, great comes great responsibility. So next time you make a movie, let's cut back on the racist stereotypes, the over-sexualization of teenage girls, and your heroin-like addiction to explosions. Let's take off that needle and replace it with dialogue that fits the age of the characters, plots that make sense, and maybe an edit or two so your next movie is not 3.5 hours. Simply Mr. Bay, you can have it both. You can make a movie that is loved by critics and audiences and still makes bank at the box office. In fact, you've already done this before, and for the love of God, I think you can do it again. Please, Michael Bay, you are our only hope. Sincerely, moviegoers everywhere.
Nice.
I don't think he has to cut back on the over-sexualization, though.
Of course, Greg.
I'm totally cool with that.
But it is kind of funny when it's like always a random scene of like a ship flying by, and you always see like this underneath shot of just some girl who is very filled out and like wearing no clothes. And you're like, all right. And then there's a really awkwardness in Transformers 4 with like a statutory rape scene where basically it's kind of creepy. So
all right, I didn't see the new Transformers, so
yeah, I know I didn't like it. A lot of people liked it more than I did, but
my brother said he enjoyed it, and I asked him about the whole situation because I always have trouble keeping up in that movie with when they transform, because I don't know who's fighting what and the what there, because all the transforming and whatnot. But he said that was better.
I would say it is probably better this time because a lot of the Transformers don't look the same; they look a lot different. But
yeah, and he said there's not that many. If it's not a Decepticon, it's a Transformer, because there's only like five Transformers or something.
Yeah.
Be good if you don't notice one of them, it's a Decepticon.
pretty much. Which interesting, the Decepticons weren't not a big factor in the new Transformers. So, but all right. And anything else before we bring this episode to a close?
I would like to ask the people listening for a little help. As we may all know, San Diego Comic-Con is coming up in a couple of weeks, and I, for one, have tickets. That's not a brag. That's just a statement of fact. And I was looking for any help because I'm starting to plan out my 2 days to go to Comic-Con, what I'm going to do. If anybody has recommendations for me, little hints or tips that might help out, if they know good food places in the area, anything like that, I would be really grateful. I mostly like to do the Artist Alley stuff, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get any of that done because I have tickets for Friday or Saturday. The event starts at Thursday, and the artists usually start taking names at Thursday, so if anybody has any input into that, I'd also like to know if there's a way to get sketches on Friday and Saturday from some of the more known guys. But yeah, any advice would be really great, everybody, and I really appreciate any help that I get.
Very nice. I know from my experience at Scranton Comic-Con. No, wait, that won't apply. You can show up whenever you want, and it will be completely fine. So, interesting. Well, I hope you have tons of fun at San Diego Comic-Con, and I will be, working, doing a job while you're living it up in San Diego.
Well, you were at the beach while I was at my job, so.
Yeah, true. Plus, I don't my worry about going to San Diego Comic-Con, I feel like it's just a con of lines, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to plan out as best as possible. The first one I planned out a little bit, but I still kind of I don't think I stuck to my guns as much as I should have of sticking to my plans. So I was kind of just mostly wandering around a lot.
All right.
Yeah, it seems like it would be more of a standing in line convention.
Yeah.
If you're a big fan of lines, that's where everyone goes.
All right, so we'd like to thank you for joining us for this week. We'll be back next week. But if you want to get in contact with Greg, answer his questions, or like I said, let us know who would be in your party of 5, you can send us an email at feedback@geekcastradio.com. We're on Facebook or Twitter. Just search Talking in Circles. I'm also on Twitter at Movie Revolt. Anyways, that is it for this week. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel, same podcast feed. But for now,
this has been Chuck.
This has been Greg, or Frank Lloyd Wright.
And this has been Dan, and we've been Talking in Circles. We'll see you next week.
Woo!
You said, I thought you were going to go Frank Lloyd Webber. I'm like, I would never have guessed that. Wow.
And then I thought, I had pop into my head Christopher Lloyd. I'm like, wait, no.
See, he's a person you could bring to your dinner, and then it'll be forever long. You can go back and do it again with different people. You go to different time periods, it's like. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, one of those epic rap battles of history is Doc Brown versus Doctor Who.
Nice.